You know that Casey Musgrave song? It's a slow burn. It's kind of what go-to-market is like for horizontal B2B SaaS. So let me talk about the challenges here. And I'm going to talk to you about two companies that I advise, Clay and Tenor, because they both took much different approaches. But there is a core idea that exists in both of these companies, and it is a much more hidden core idea in Clay than it is in Tenor. So let's start with Tenor. The thing that is beautiful about this company is that over time they did more for one customer. And it's really hard to do because all of the gravity in business is to do more for more products for more people. But the thing about that is that it really means that you can't be great for anyone. And no one talks about an okay product. This is an okay product. It takes USB-C and makes it USB-A. It's fine. I'm not going to be like, yo, you need to check out this USB-C to USB-A Apple product. It's overpriced. I'm making a transaction, right? And and there are better versions of this. And there's tiny versions. There's this version, right? But for you to be transformative for a company, you have to be laser focused on their problem. And their problem, if you're talking about an industry, is deeper than you think, because you can always go the next step. And as the water level rises, you become so much more useful. But you can't rise the water level for anyone. You have to have the discipline to say no so that you can exercise the right to say yes. And saying yes is saying yes to a segment. It's saying yes to a persona. It's saying yes so that the 10th yes is 10 times more valuable than the first yes. And that only happens if you segment. If you can say one persona, one problem, one segment, those three things. Now, let's dive into an opposite case today. And then I will come back to why this works for Clay. So I asked Claude to give me an example. First, I was like, I want to call this thing a Tesseract because it's fucking Avengers cool to say the word Tesseract. It sounds way smarter than the word cube. But Claude's like, dude, what are you talking about as a cube? I was like, all right. So if you're selling to 3 personas and 6 segments, and by the way, what you try to do is you try to build more product to solve these problems. So the problem is that this multiplies, right? So you're selling to 3 personas and 6 segments. You have 126 combinations of persona, segment, and version. There is no way that you can do great marketing to 126 segments, especially because there's competitors. That is not strategy. That's a failure. It's a failure of choice. And it seems it's usually in companies saying that we're going to go after 3 personas, 6 segments, 7 product versions feels good because you're like, we can be everything to everyone. And of course, everyone wants to say that. But if you choose as a leader and you say 1 persona, 1 segment, 1 product version, unless you're the CEO, if you're not the CEO and you say one, and what happens is our numbers are slipping, it's because you targeted too narrowly. And so this has to come from the top. Now, let's get back. Let's talk about Tenor. What Tenor did was Tenor said, we're just going to go after durable medical equipment companies. There's 2,000 companies in that TAM. And they just went deep. They added value. And they rose the tide for this one segment. And by the way, easier to rise a tide in a confined space. They can push the water. A small team can push the water level up. And as they did it, they became so valuable for this one segment that the market tipped. So it went from a push to a pull motion, which is, you're pushing. And eventually, because they had great strategic vision, it tipped, and then deals would come their way and it would be way easier. That's the right way to build a business. Now, you look at a company like Clay, and what Clay said is one persona, it's the go-to-market engineer, yours truly, and growth person, whatever. And Clay said, we're going to be everything to that person. Now, by this same logic, this was a failure of focus. But the interesting thing is that Clay, it started out not complex enough. It got a little bit more complex, and it still wasn't complex enough. But then it got so complex that people like me used it to create, to embody their own imagination. And what the market sold for them, which is people like me, we sold our imagination that happened to use the tool. Tenor was selling outcomes. And you can look up, I'm really proud. I wrote a lot of copy on the website. Very proud of it. They were saying, we will do this end-to-end thing that you hired a person to help with, and we can take care of a large chunk of that work. And there weren't a lot of people competing for that space. But Clay didn't say that. Clay said, who are the Imagineers of the go-to-market space? And we will build a tool for the Imagineers. And they didn't solve any particular problem. They allowed me to solve any problem. And so they essentially gave me a magic wand. It's a very hard thing to do because you have to give the person, you have to find the people that know what they wish for. And not many people know what they wish for. But they picked, maybe unintentionally, this really rich niche segment. And the imagination of those people, the Andreases of the world, the Kellen Casebeers of the world, the Eric Nowoslowskis of the world, they shared their imagination with the world, and it was the imagination that drove the growth. I chat with a bunch of CROs, and they are like, I know I need Clay. It's a hot thing. I have to buy it. No one that I have talked with that's senior in go-to-market leadership says, we have to buy a Clay to solve for this problem. But that's the only thing they say about Tenor. They say, I need to solve this problem. And so there is a path to win in both segments. But in both cases, you need to capture the imagination of one type of person. And that person, the well-networked they are, the tighter they are, that imagination is what makes growth so easy. And you cannot capture the imagination of a segment if you're trying to capture the imagination of 126. Because what you are saying is, I am not going to choose, you choose. And that's the nature of inbound. That's the nature of inbound. When people are like, I just need this thing, they'll buy from you. And the great strategic loss of immense amount of go-to-market human capital is a failure to say no to a segment. And part of that is venture funding, and part of that is worry. It's like it is the worry about hosting a buffet, and you're worried about leaving hungry. But no one goes to a buffet for sushi. But the best pizza place, the best sushi place, the best fried chicken place, people can hold that in their mind. Have a wonderful rest of your night. I wanted to share this with you because I see a lot of go-to-market talent and go-to-market challenges, and most of it boils down to the inability to say no. What aren't you trying to do? When the first iPod came out, there were two types of products for portable music. There was the tiny sort of iPod shuffle size MP3 players. They could hold 20, 50 songs, something. There was the CD size MP3 players that could hold, I don't know, 20,000, 30,000 songs. And the beauty of the iPod at the time was that it said, we're not going to be so tiny as you can put in your pocket because we don't want to make that compromise. We also realized that a CD player is like really hard to hold. And they're like, well, the Walkman was a reasonable size and people used it and they played it. And the first iPod was that compromise because it said, if you want to listen to music, you are okay to sacrifice size if you can have 5,000 songs in your pocket, because that's more than anyone can listen to in any reasonable amount of time. But the difference between 5,000 and 20,000 for the size, it doesn't make sense. I need to be able to hold it. I need to be able to pocket it. And that's the thing that people aren't doing today. They're not saying, who is this for and what does this replace? And software is so easy to build. We think we can build our way out of this. And instead of building deep, we build wide. And when we build wide, we are absolutely nothing great to nobody. Have a beautiful day.